You wake up in the morning and before you even open your eyes fully, you already feel it. That dryness in your mouth. Your tongue feels heavy, almost stuck. Your lips are dry, sometimes slightly cracked, and the first instinct is automatic. You reach for water. It's become such a normal part of your routine that you barely question it anymore. Maybe you've even mentioned it casually before and were told it's just something that happens with age. And over time, that explanation becomes convenient. It gives you a reason to stop thinking about it. But here's the part most people never fully consider. When something happens every single day, consistently, predictably, it's rarely random. And it's almost never meaningless. Your body does not create repetitive patterns without a reason, especially not overnight, when your system is supposed to be recovering, restoring, and maintaining balance. That dryness you feel is not just discomfort, it's a signal. And in many cases, it's one of the earliest signals your body gives when something deeper is slightly off. The challenge is that it doesn't come with urgency. There's no pain that forces you to act, no dramatic symptom that interrupts your day, so it gets ignored. But over time, these small signals can connect to larger patterns that influence how you feel throughout the day. Energy levels, focus, even how your body responds to stress. What makes this especially important after 60 is that your body becomes more sensitive to imbalance. What used to be minor becomes more noticeable, and what used to correct itself easily now requires a bit more attention. So instead of brushing it off, it becomes worth asking a simple question. What exactly is your body trying to tell you every morning? To understand why this happens, it helps to look at something most people never think about until it's gone: saliva. It seems like such a small, unimportant detail, but in reality, it plays a much larger role than people realize. Throughout the day, your body produces a steady flow that helps maintain balance in your mouth and digestive system. It protects your teeth, supports digestion, and helps control the environment inside your mouth. But more importantly, it reflects how your body is functioning overall. When production drops significantly during the night, it's not just an isolated event. It's often a sign that something is influencing your system during those hours. The reason this matters more as you get older is because your body becomes less adaptable. Systems that once compensated automatically now respond more slowly. This means that small disruptions can become more noticeable. What makes this tricky is that the change usually happens gradually. You don't wake up one day with a completely dry mouth. It builds over time. Slight dryness becomes more frequent than more intense until it becomes part of your normal routine. And once something becomes normal, it stops being questioned. But that's exactly when it should be, because the body rarely changes patterns without a reason. And understanding that reason is where things begin to shift. One of the most common reasons behind this pattern is something that almost everyone over 60 is familiar with, but rarely connects to this specific issue: medications. Not one, but often several. As the years pass, it becomes more common to rely on daily prescriptions or supplements to manage different aspects of health. And each one of those plays a role inside your body. What many people don't realize is that these effects don't always stay isolated. When multiple medications are taken together, their effects can overlap in subtle ways. One of those effects is reduced moisture production. This doesn't create an immediate problem. It builds gradually, especially overnight when your body is in a more passive state. During the day, you drink water, you speak, you move, and these actions help maintain balance. But at night, everything slows down, and that's when these effects become more noticeable. The result is what you feel in the morning. What makes this especially challenging is that people rarely connect the timing. They may start a new medication weeks or months before noticing the change, making it difficult to see the relationship. But once you start paying attention to patterns, the connection often becomes clearer. Another cause that many people completely overlook is not something you can see during the day, but something that happens quietly while you sleep: the way you breathe at night. Most people assume that breathing is automatic and consistent, but that is not always the case, especially as the body changes with age. During sleep, your body is supposed to maintain a steady rhythm, drawing air through your nose, keeping the airways stable, and allowing moisture to remain balanced throughout your mouth and throat. But when that pattern changes, even slightly, the effects can become noticeable by morning. When your body shifts from nasal breathing to mouth breathing, the entire environment changes. Air moves differently, moisture evaporates more quickly, and your mouth becomes dry over several hours without you being aware of it. The result is exactly what you feel when you wake up. But what makes this more important is not just the dryness itself. It's what causes that shift in breathing in the first place. In many cases, it is related to how the airway behaves during sleep. When the airway becomes less stable, even briefly, your body compensates by opening the mouth to maintain airflow. This may happen multiple times throughout the night without waking you fully. And over time, this pattern becomes consistent. What makes this especially concerning is that it often goes unnoticed for years. People assume they are sleeping normally because they are in bed for enough hours. But the quality of that sleep may be very different. Signs like waking up tired, feeling less clear in the morning, or experiencing that dry mouth regularly are often connected to this deeper pattern. The dryness is not the main issue, it's the signal. And when that signal appears consistently, it's worth paying attention to what is happening during those hours when your body is supposed to be recovering the most. Closely connected to this is something that affects millions of people, often without them realizing it, not because it is rare, but because it develops quietly and is easy to miss in its early stages. Sleep disruption patterns that change how your body functions overnight. These patterns do not always wake you up fully, which is why they are so easy to ignore. Instead, they interrupt your body in subtle ways, altering how your system regulates breathing, circulation, and recovery. When this happens repeatedly, the effects begin to show up in the morning, not just as dryness, but as a general sense that your sleep was not as restorative as it should have been. You may wake up feeling like you slept, but not fully rested. Your energy may take longer to build throughout the day, and over time, this becomes your new normal. What makes this especially important is that the body depends on those overnight hours to reset itself. When that process is disrupted, even slightly, it affects everything that follows. The dryness in your mouth is one of the simplest signals of that disruption, but it is rarely the only one. It often appears alongside other subtle changes that people don't immediately connect. The key idea here is that your body communicates through patterns. When the same thing happens every morning, it is not random. It is part of a system that is repeating itself. And once you begin to see it that way, the question shifts from, how do I fix the dryness, to, what is creating this pattern every night? Another important factor that becomes more relevant with age is how your body manages internal balance, particularly when it comes to fluid regulation. This is something that works very efficiently when you are younger, but gradually changes over time. One of the most noticeable differences is how your body signals thirst. The sensation that tells you to drink water becomes less reliable. It doesn't disappear, but it becomes weaker, less urgent, and easier to ignore. This means that you can be slightly dehydrated without feeling it in the same way you once did. During the day, this may not seem significant. You continue your routine, drink occasionally, and everything feels manageable. But overnight, when your body is not receiving any additional fluids, that small deficit becomes more noticeable. The result is what you feel in the morning. Dryness that reflects not just what happened overnight, but what your body was missing throughout the entire day. What makes this especially important is that this type of imbalance builds gradually. It doesn't come from one day of low water intake. It comes from a pattern that repeats over time. And because the signal of thirst is less reliable, many people don't realize it's happening. They assume they are drinking enough simply because they are not feeling thirsty. But the body is already operating at a slight deficit, and that deficit shows up in the most sensitive areas first, like your mouth. This is why morning dryness can sometimes be the most visible sign of something that has been developing quietly throughout the day before. Now we come to something that many people do not immediately connect to dry mouth, yet it plays a significant role in how the body behaves overnight: the way your body manages sugar levels. This is not just about what you eat during the day, but how your system processes and balances those levels over time. When that balance shifts, even slightly, the body begins to compensate in ways that are not always obvious at first. One of those ways involves fluid distribution. When sugar levels rise beyond what the body expects, your system responds by trying to dilute that concentration. It pulls fluid from different areas to restore balance, and that includes the tissues in your mouth. Over time, this creates a state where moisture is reduced, especially during the night when no new fluids are being introduced. The result is what you feel when you wake up. But what makes this more important is not just the dryness itself, it's what it represents. Because changes in how your body handles sugar do not happen suddenly. They develop gradually, often without clear symptoms in the early stages. You may feel slightly more tired than usual. Notice that your energy fluctuates more throughout the day, or find that certain tasks feel more mentally demanding than before. These changes are often dismissed or attributed to age, but sometimes they are connected to how your body is managing internal balance. The dryness you experience in the morning may be one of the earliest visible signs of that shift. And because it is visible and consistent, it becomes an opportunity to pay attention before more noticeable changes appear. Understanding this connection does not mean assuming the worst. It simply means recognizing that your body is providing information in a subtle but consistent way. There is also another layer to this that is often overlooked, and that is how different systems in your body work together rather than independently. When one system is slightly out of balance, others begin to adjust in response. This is especially true when it comes to your immune system. In some cases, the body begins to respond in ways that affect its own tissues, not as a mistake, but as part of a larger pattern that is not fully understood. When this happens, areas responsible for producing moisture, like the glands that support your mouth and eyes, may begin to function differently. This does not always happen suddenly. It develops over time, often gradually enough that it is mistaken for normal aging. Dryness becomes more frequent, not just in the mouth, but sometimes in the eyes as well. You may notice a gritty feeling or a need to use eye drops more often. These are subtle changes, but when they appear together, they form a pattern. What makes this important is not to jump to conclusions, but to recognize that patterns matter more than individual symptoms. A single instance of dryness is rarely significant, but when it becomes consistent, when it appears alongside other changes, it becomes information. And that information can help you understand what your body may be experiencing at a deeper level. The key is awareness, not fear. Observing without immediately reacting, but also without ignoring. When you begin to look at all of these factors together, something important becomes clear. Morning dry mouth is not caused by a single universal reason. It is the result of patterns, combinations, and how your body responds to them over time. For some people, it may be influenced more by medications. For others, it may be connected to breathing patterns during sleep. In other cases, it may reflect hydration habits or how the body manages internal balance. What matters most is not identifying one cause immediately, but understanding that the signal itself is meaningful. Once you recognize that, you can begin to observe your own patterns more clearly. For example, you might notice that the dryness is more intense on certain days or after certain routines. You may begin to connect it with how you slept, what you ate, or how much water you had during the day. These small observations start to build a clearer picture, and that picture is far more useful than a general explanation, because it is specific to you. What makes this approach effective is that it does not rely on assumptions. It relies on awareness. And awareness allows you to make small adjustments that align with how your body actually responds, rather than following a one-size-fits-all solution. The most important thing to take away from all of this is simple, but powerful. What feels like a small inconvenience is often one of the clearest signals your body gives you, not because it is dramatic, but because it is consistent. And consistency is how the body communicates over time. Morning dry mouth is not something to fear, but it is also not something to ignore. It sits in that space where awareness makes all the difference. When you begin to pay attention to it, not just as a symptom, but as part of a pattern, your perspective changes. You stop looking for quick fixes and start understanding what your body is telling you. And that understanding allows you to respond in a way that is calm, informed, and aligned with your needs. The goal is not perfection, it is clarity, knowing when something is just temporary and when it is part of a larger pattern that deserves attention. Because once you have that clarity, even small adjustments can create meaningful changes over time. More comfort in the morning, more consistent energy during the day, and a stronger sense that your body is working with you, not against you.